Alright guys, in this one I'm going to be doing something a little different. I hope you all enjoy it, but I'm going to be making a tier list of all the Warlock exotics currently in the game. And if you guys would like to see the other classes or weapons or just any tier list in general, be sure to let me know in the comments and I will try to get around to them. But I figured in this one I would go with what I know best, and that is going over my main, the Warlock. I was just jumping right into it. I'm going to start from left to right and just go all the way down. I'm going to assume most of you all have a relatively good idea of what these exotics do. I will give a little brief description, but just starting off with the first one, we have the Aeons, Swift, Soul, whatever they are called for the Warlock. But these are 100% going in S tier, just like any class. They are almost mandatory at this point, it seems, in a day one raid scenario because you run out of ammo so much. But these will generate heavy ammo when you finish major targets if you are running specific mod. Nobody really ever runs the other two mods, but this just being able to generate heavy ammo for your team is insanely strong, and it definitely is going into S tier. Now we have Apotheosis Veil. This is the next one. This one is definitely not the greatest. You basically get full health when you pop a super, and you get max of your abilities as well. It is not insane, to be honest. You also do give your teammates class ability generation if they're near you, but this is honestly going to D tier. It's really not worth it. I would never recommend taking this. It does have a cool unique benefit where it does drop more intellect since it is a super based helmet, but you should just never use it. Now this is specifically a PvE focus. I should have mentioned that earlier, but Astrocyte Verse, that is definitely going in D tier for PvE. You should never use Blink in PvE. I mean, if you're a god with it, sure, try it out, but you want something obviously to buff your other abilities. Now Boots of the Assembler is honestly going to go in A tier. It is very, very good. You basically stand in your rift and you're going to actually shoot out these orbs that are either healing or empowering based on what your rift is selected to, and when those orbs hit enemies, it will actually make your rift last longer. So you're basically just having ranged rift, which is really, really cool. And it does pair with Lumina very well. And with that combination, you can live out your support dreams on Warlock, and it's very, very fun. And it's also very, very good as well. I don't think it's S tier, but it definitely is up there with one of the best exotics. Now our next exotic is Chromatic Fire. This is an exotic when you get a headshot with a kinetic weapon, it will actually generate an explosion. This does pair with things like Firefly, and it is okay for ad clear. It's definitely not as good as other exotics, but it is a unique exotic and it is very fun, especially obviously compared to like Ace of Spades. So I will rank this B tier. It's definitely not amazing, but it's also not bad. I would just probably never recommend using it over something else though. But if you do want to use it and just cause explosions everywhere, things like volatile rounds, Firefly, this paired together, you can live out your dreams and do that and just be completely overkill with your kinetic primary weapon. Now Clawson is the next one. This essentially is just going to give you 2 melee charges. It is very good paired with some Warlock melees, things like your stasis melee. Even Celestial Fire is not bad, but again, it is just another one of those exotics where it does a thing that is relatively good. It's not bad, it's not good, so I'm gonna put it in B tier. Like, it's definitely okay, but it's also like you would never run this over anything else, so that is why I think I'm gonna put that in B tier. Now we have Controverse Hole, which is without a doubt an S tier exotic. When you hold down your grenade, you essentially can throw it, you get damage reduction while you're holding it down too. When the grenade hits an enemy, it will give you ability energy back. This is extremely strong paired with Void Walker, and if you make a build around this, it is still one of the best in-game builds in the game. Paired with a Vortex Grenade, you can just add clear entire rooms with it. You have infinite grenades, you get damage reduction. It's very, very good. And we also have Crown Tempest. So this is when you get art kills, you're actually going to get a buff that basically reduces the cooldown of all your abilities. Is very, very strong, especially with Arc 3.0 being out. It's definitely going in the S tier. It's one of the best Arc 3.0 exotics, and it also makes your Storm Trains last longer, which is another benefit, but Storm Trains is kind of but it is good for ad clear. Now I have another world. Honestly, I'm going to put this in an A tier exotic. It is very good. What this does is actually just give you more cooldown for all your abilities, and it will highlight targets that are powerful. That's kind of whatever, but the cooldown actually will exceed the tier 100. So if you have tier 100 discipline, you can actually put this on and you get even more cooldown after tier 100. So that's very, very cool. It's very good. It's just a nice exotic to throw on if you don't really know what to wear and get a lot of benefits out of it. Now we have the new exotic, the Fallen Sunstar. This is another Arc 3.0 exotic. The Ionic traces you generate move faster to you, and you also get more energy, and that energy is given to your teammates. This is without a doubt an S tier exotic. If you are playing Arc 3.0, this is just what you want to run on the Warlock. You could argue that you could move Crown Tempest down to A, being that the, you know, Fallen Sunstar exists. And honestly, I might do that just to, you know, keep them different, because they kind of do the same thing. The Fallen Sunstar just does it a little bit better and helps your teammates, and you don't have to run Storm Trance. So I think it definitely deserves the S tier, where Crown Tempest goes into A tier. Now we have Fellwither's Helm, which is not a very utilized exotic, but it honestly is very good. Now I think I'm going to put it in the A tier. So what this does, when you get a powered melee kill or a finisher, you actually debuff enemies around you. This is extremely good in boss scenarios where enemies are close by. You can just get a finisher off and you're going to debuff the enemy for 30% for quite a while. And on top of that, if you're running arc, you can play into the mod. When you finish an enemy, it spawns 2 arc elemental wells, throw a storm chaser on it, even the new linear fusion from this season, and you could just obliterate bosses. It's actually very, very fun, very, very strong. It's also not even that bad for ad clear if you run things like Celestial Fire, so you can get your melee back with Solar 3.0, and you can just debuff an entire room. Would I run it over other exotics? Probably not, but I do think it is better than Chromatic Fire and Clawson obviously, but I don't think it deserves the S tier spot. Now we do have Geomax Stabilizers. This is an interesting one because it does make Chaos Reach a lot better, which on its own is very good, but Chaos Reach is not that good. So you're basically making a super that is not that good into an okay-ish super. So honestly, I'm gonna rank these B tier. Nobody ever really uses these for Arc 3.0 anyway. You might as well just run Fallen Sunstar to make your ad clear better with just your abilities. And I mean, if you pop these on when you pop a Chaos Reach, it will be a little bit better, but I honestly think you might lower your DPS if you use a Chaos Reach other than just shooting a weapon. Now we have Getaway Artists, which is not terrible. I honestly would put it in C tier though. Like you already can get your Arc Soul with Arc 3.0 alone, and its main benefit was that it made that amplified Arc Soul. And since you're already going to be amplified 24/7 on the Warlock with Electrostatic Mine, you don't really need to get amplified with its additional benefit they gave it. And the Arc Soul is going to have its, you know, increased form when you're amplified anyway. So it's definitely not the greatest. I would never recommend using these for PvE. I do think it's a little bit better than the other one, since it does have a little benefit if you aren't running Electrostatic Mine, but I wouldn't recommend running this. Now we have the Carnosium Armlets, which is actually a pretty good exotic as well. So when you get a melee kill, you actually going to generate some health, and you start your health regeneration like for 6 or 7 seconds, I think, and you just constantly heal. It's very, very strong. Honestly, I'm going to put it in B tier though, because it is good at what it does, but for the most part, when you need the health regeneration is in-game content, and most of the times in in-game content, unless you're a Titan, you're not going to be up meleeing things. I guess maybe a Hunter now as well, and Warlock does have a couple builds, but you're not going to run these for that Warlock build. This is good for lower tier content, but again, in lower tier content, if you have 100 resilience, you don't even really need the health regeneration. So it's kind of the middle, where it's not bad, but it's also not like good, depending on what content you're playing. So that's why I'm going to throw it in B tier. Then we have Lunafaction Boots, which are 100% going into S tier. When you're in a Rift, you get more reload speed, and when you're in a Empowering Rift, you get more range and reload speed. So this is really, really good for boss DPS scenarios. You throw a Rift down, your teammates are all buffed with this reload speed, and it makes your DPS just go up like crazy. Now we also have Nothing Manacles, which are definitely going to go into A tier for me. These are the rival of Controverse Hold. You basically get another scatter grenade, and the scatter grenades get the ability to track. So this is really good with Void 3.0. You can basically make your scatter grenades just obliterate enemies, even higher health enemies. They're very, very fun, but I think overall, especially in in-game content, when your scatter grenades may not secure the kill, Controverse Hold is the way to go, since all you have to do is hit enemies to get ability regeneration back. Now, Mantle of Battle Harmony, I'm going to throw in A tier as well. When you get a kill that matches your subclass type, you get more super energy. It's actually a lot more super energy. You can get like 30-second supers if you make builds with it correctly. And also, if you have your super full, you will get a damage bonus when you kill enemies with that weapon that matches your subclass type. This is extremely strong pair with a stasis build that I actually posted on my channel a couple days ago. If you guys would like to go check that out. But alone, like, this exotic is very, very good. I don't think I would run it over some of the S tier exotics, but I would definitely run it over Chromatic Fire and Clawson, and that is why I think it deserves to go in the A tier spot. Then we have an Aquatic Grip, which I think also deserves to go in the A tier spot. It is very good for ad clear. You can get a melee hit, and you're basically going to poison everything. It's going to spread, kill every enemies, and it does pair extremely well with things like Osteostriga or even your Glaive now. So this is definitely not an S tier. The other stuff in S tier are definitely a little bit better, but it is a very, very good build to try out, and it is extremely strong. And who knows, if it does pair with Strand when we get that in Nightfall, I can see this definitely moving up to S tier if it does have some unique interactions with that. Now we have Nezorax Sin, which I think is also going to go in A tier. This is a very strong exotic. When you get void kills, you basically get more ability generation, sort of like Crown Tempest, but it is just void, and it is just void kills as well. You can get void weapon kills and it will proc it. I know a lot of people like to use this over things like Controversial, but the problem is in in-game content, if you're not getting a lot of void kills, you're not going to keep that buff up all the time, but it is good. Don't get me wrong. I definitely think there is an argument to throw it in S tier, but I'm going to put it in A tier because I do just like running controversial holds a little bit more. Now we have fitting in aspects. Again, this is a PvE focused video, so I'm going to throw this in C tier. Having that reload speed and handling, I guess, is nice in PvE, but you would never want to run this in any activity over some of these other exotics you have access to. Osmium Macy Gloves is 100% an S tier exotic. You get another Cold Snap, which means you can have 2 Bleak Watcher turrets. I did also post a video on this yesterday if you guys would like to check that out. And even if you don't run the Bleak Watcher, you can literally just spam Cold Snaps everywhere with it. Alongside the 2 Cold Snaps, you do get ability generation when you freeze enemies or when the grenade hits enemies. So it makes it very, very good for crowd control. It's honestly one of the best crowd control exotics in the game. All right, so now we have Phoenix Protocol. This is an exotic that is 100% one of the S tier. When you place your Well of Radiance, you stand in it, you get kills, and you get up to 50% of your Well of Radiance back. Well of Radiance is one of the most broken supers in the entire game, so having the ability to just always have that, especially in parts where, you know, a day 1 raids out or just harder in-game content in general, having Wells is extremely valuable. So just being able to make sure you always get one extremely fast is very, very strong. Now we have Promethean Spur, I think is how you say it. This exotic is going into the D tier. It is definitely not the greatest. What it does is when you get a solo weapon kill, it actually spawn a Empowering Rift and a Healing Rift on that enemy you killed, which is not bad, and it also has the effect that when you get kills with your Daybreak, it will also spawn those on every enemy you kill. The main thing I think they could change about this is let that Healing and Empowering Rift spawn on you less than the enemy. I don't like the way that's set up, and you would almost just never run this. They do look really cool though, and you know, looks alone, maybe you could put it in C tier, but usability, it's definitely going in D tier. I would never recommend using this. Now we have Rain of Fire, which is going to be another B tier exotic. It's kind of in the middle. It's not good. It's not bad. It does have some unique interactions if you use things like rockets, because obviously you can dash in the air, reload the rocket. If you do have Heat Rods as proc, you can shoot 3 rockets back to back to back, or even things like grenade launchers you can pair with it. And it is also very good with Vexmith class or any other fusion rifle built in general, because you do get Radiant 24/7. It's not too hard to proc Radiant on its own, but if you are running a fusion rifle, you might as well just run these instead of using a fragment to proc Radiant. And again, it's very build specific, but it is good for what those builds are. Stingray Alchemy is definitely going to C tier. It's definitely not the worst. You get kills while in your Rift, extends the duration. It's kind of the same thing as Boots the Assembler. Boots the Assembler heals your teammates and you get extended duration. This is killing enemies, you get extended duration. The only place I could really see this useful is things like Totems in Oryx, because you're going to get kills. You can just have your Healing Rift up 24/7. But other than that, it's not that good. I wouldn't recommend using it. Now, Sacred Filaments is definitely going to go in the A tier slot. This gives you overload when you're in a Empowering Rift, and it automatically procs Devour. Devour is very strong in PvE in general, but having the ability to overload targets with any weapon you want to and have that damage buff from Empowering Rift is really, really strong. And also, if you play into Child of Old Gods, you can debuff enemies as well. You make a Rift build with this thing, you're going to always have Devour, you're going to always have Overload, and you're always going to have Child of Old Gods going everywhere. And I definitely think they are a very, very good in-game exotic. Skull of Dioram Kara is definitely a C tier exotic. It's not the worst. You get damage reduction when you throw your Nova Bomb, and on top of that, you get ability energy back when you get kills with that Nova Bomb. Again, if you're making a Nova Bomb based build, you might as well just play into the other better parts of the build with things like Controversial Hole and their grenades, or even not the Manacles, or again, even Nezorax Sin. This on its own, Nova Bomb is just not the greatest super in the game. And if you're using it for at clear to get your super back, I mean, honestly, just put the other exotics on. It's not worth it. The damage reduction, I guess, is okay, but don't run this thing. It is a little bit better than obviously Astrocyte Verse, but it's not the greatest. It needs a buff. Now we have Starfire Protocol, which is for sure an S tier exotic. When you pair this with Soul 3.0 fusion grenades, you could just have nukes thrown out 24/7. Again, I have made a build on my channel if you guys like check that out. Pretty much a lot of these exotics I've made builds on. I want to get to a point where I've made an exotic with every build. Even my Astrocyte Verse down here, I may get around to that just for funsies, but literally, like, Starfire Protocol is just insane. It makes Warlock and Soul 3.0 just ridiculous, and you can just kill entire rooms with the fusion grenade. Now, Storm Dancer's Brace is an interesting one. This is going to give you more damage to your Storm Trance, and when you get kills in Storm Trance, it will actually refund up to 50% of your super energy. So if you're making a Storm Trance based build, it is actually one of the best ad clear supers in the game if you are running this. And it can be pretty good, don't get me wrong. But again, if you're running a super to ad clear, you might as well just take Fallen Sunstar or Crown Out Tempest. So I don't know why you would want to run this, so it's definitely going in C tier. Again, it's definitely not terrible, but you should just run something else. Your Storm Grenades with Jolt will do just as much as this will, and you can have infinite Storm Grenades. Now, some bracers are very good. They're definitely going in the A tier. You get a melee kill, you can throw infinite solar grenades that last longer, but Soul 3.0, they have more benefits. You're spewing out that lava everywhere alongside doing the normal grenade. It's very fun for grenade-based builds, and it's also extremely easy to get your power melee back to proc it with Soul 3.0 with things like Heat Rises. The Stag's also going in A tier. This is a good exotic. It's kind of like Out of Another World if you don't know what to run. You just throw it on, you get more damage reduction in your Rift, you get a bunch of Rifts back. It's very good for survivability, since every time you go to red bar health, you get so much Rift energy back. And if you die, you do spawn a Rift on your orb so your teammates can come and res you. So if you are not as skilled of a player and you need that damage reduction and that extra healing, this is a very good exotic to run. And obviously there's no shame in wanting to run this at all. It is good in general just to get that damage reduction, and that's why it's going into A tier side, because it is a relatively good exotic. Sure, you can make other things work a little bit better, but if you don't really know how to make those things work that well, throw the Stag on, you're going to be good to go, and you can do pretty much any in-game content you want to. Now, Trance vs. Steps is another one. I think this is going to go in C tier, honestly. It is good. Maybe I can move it to B because it's kind of like Rain of Fire, so you get that reload when you just sprint a little bit instead of dodging. Could be very, very good for that, but the sprint speed in general and slot speed distance doesn't really matter, but having that reload is extremely nice. And I think I will keep it in B tier because that reload on something like a machine gun that takes a while to reload is, you know, very nice to have. Now, Verity's Brow, I'm gonna honestly put this in S tier. When you get elemental kills and match your subclass type, you get more grenade damage. The grenade damage you get from this can make your grenades extremely strong to compare with every 3.0 subclass as well. It's not strictly on one subclass. And when you throw your grenades, you give your teammates grenade regeneration as well. You get more grenade regeneration for yourself. It's a very strong exotic. You get damage generation and you buff your teammates. S tier for sure, and I would definitely recommend using this if you haven't tried it out with any other 3.0 subclasses. All right, so now we have Vespa Radius, which, don't get me wrong, is a fun exotic. It is also relatively good paired with, you know, your Rift abilities with Arc 3.0, because you get your Rifts back insanely fast, which means you can have a lot of Arc Souls up, but in the grand scheme of things, it is not the greatest. So it's going to go in C tier. It does have some benefits. It's definitely not bad, but it's definitely not as good as these other exotics. Now, Wingsteger Dawn is definitely going in D tier. This is definitely a PvP focused exotic. No one really cares about flying in the air and PvE. I guess if there was some points in the game it could be useful, maybe getting around to areas faster. You can just aim that slight Icarus dash, wait for the Icarus dash to come back. You can kind of just literally fly in the game, but I would never recommend using anything other than that. Now, Winter's Guile is going to go in the B tier. I definitely think this is a very good exotic pair with Arc 2.0. I did make a build on this the other day. Again, if you guys like to check that out, you could get a bunch of stacks of Winter's Guile, which lets you just go melee enemies. You can pretty much just become a Titan on your Warlock, which is very, very cool. But over some other exotics, it is a very unique build, and I wouldn't recommend using it. And I definitely think this is the end of my tier list. I think it is very good. Let me know what you guys think about in the comments. I'm sure I'm going to get roasted for some of these picks. I'm sure there's at least one player out there that loves Astrite versus PvE is going to think it deserves the S tier spot. But other than that, I think that is going to do it all for me. If you guys did enjoy and want to see more content just like this, consider subscribing, drop a like, and turn those notifications on. Also, if you like to join my Discord or follow me on any of my socials, all that will be linked in the description below. But just know watching this video is way more than enough. Every single bit of support from y'all is truly appreciated. Thank y'all so much for watching this one, and have a great day. Peace.